The storm has passed and the weather this weekend looks like it'll be good. Offshore, look for the floating debris for dolphin and tripletail. And if you don't want to fish in the heat, our guides are reporting night fishing around the docks can be fun under the lights. Lots more information coming at you here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Hello Texans, and welcome back to another week of catching here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. We're your hosts, Brie Gabrielle and Captain Rick Murphy. And you know, last weekend Rick was uncertain with the landfall of Hurricane Hannah. Well, our thoughts and our prayers go out to everyone who was affected, and we hope everyone was able to stay safe. But now the conditions are ripe with prospects for the pickings, right, Rick?
You're absolutely right. And you know, I've talked to our guides, and some of the guys are really excited about what the storm has brought. And then, you know, our good buddy Chad down in the lower coast, he's been definitely affected, which we'll talk to him in a little bit about it, what's going on.
All right, well, before we get to the reports, let's see what Dave Farrell has for us today over there at the workbench. Dave?
Well, we're going to go a little bit offshore, and I'm going to show people how to tie a wind-on leader from 30 to 100-pound test.
Ooh,
cool.
That
Something you
sounds
can
fun.
tie up a bunch of them and you're good to go.
Good to go.
Brie, we're going to learn today.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're fishing the Startron Middle Fresh region with Matt Loescher first up, and it's looking like we're going to be working for that bass bite on Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn and Richland Chambers. But let's hear what other species are a little more easy to come by. Talk to us, Matt.
All right, Bree. So, starting off talking about the bass this week. Toledo Bend bass are still kind of playing hard to get on us. They're being a little tricky, but you can catch them. We've had some good days. You just have to play into their picky nature right now. So, you know, it's not uncommon this time of the year to see some perfect-looking schools of fish out on your sonar on the deep spots, or even up shallow, see them chasing bait fish, but just have a hard time catching them. They're being real picky. And there's two keys to success with this kind of fishing right now, with it being tough like it is, and that's stealth and presentation. And so I go to the extremes on both counts right now to put bass in the boat. The first thing I do is I shut down my big motor far from where I plan to fish. And I kind of sneak up on the sweet spot with the trolling motor. And also, even with the trolling motor, I'm very careful not to get too close and stir up the area. And then for presentation, it's either wide open or it's turtle slow. So fast-moving plugs get the reaction bite, and slow-dragging bottom baits get the temptation bite. For the plug, you're going to want to use whatever depth diving crankbait that you need to reach the bottom, and grind it on the bottom real fast, letting it deflect off the cover. And then for the bottom bait, my best lately has been that Bass Assassin Fat Job rigged on a Carolina rig. I'm putting it on a Carolina rig, which allows me to keep it near the bottom, but it also lets that bait hang on that leader back behind the weight, giving it that weightless action that the bass just can't resist. So that's been working real good as a 1-2 punch for me, and we've been able to catch some big fish lately doing that. Now, over on Sam Rayburn, more of a shallow bite over there, on the shallow stuff, but near the drop-offs. You want to be near that deep water. So high numbers are being caught, but size is a little tougher to come by over there right now. And so to get the most bites, what you want to do is throw small soft plastics like the Bass Assassin little tapper worm, or like a small shallow diving crankbait, and throw that stuff into that shallow water around the cover and pull it off those drops. Is usually when you'll get your bite. Now you'll find the occasional big fish mixed in. It's just kind of a deal where you got to weed through a lot of small fish to find them. And so that's not such a bad deal. You know, it makes for a fun catching day. So Sam Rayburn's pretty good right now. Then up at Richland Chambers, Mr. Thurman Selman with Bass Specialty Guide Service reports a tougher bite as well. But he said that some nice bass are being caught from underneath the docks. He says that you're going to want to bring your natural-looking baits to catch those bass hanging out in the shade of those docks. Then moving a little further south, my buddy Jared Poole, the Hill Country Hammer, he's back at it again on Lake LBJ. The big fish really made it tough for him there for a couple weeks. He was kind of singing a sad tune, but he got mad at him and went and figured him out, and he's working on them again now. So he tells me that brush on the main lake point are producing some fish with Texas rigs. And then late in the evening, topwater action is good. And after dark, a buzzbait in the water willow is the deal. And I've got a photo here for you that Jared sent me where a big old bass that he caught this week. If you're looking for the big ones, you should definitely book a trip with this guy. He is always catching good fish.
Nice.
Now, talking about the crappie this week. They're still biting good at Toledo Bend, but they kind of share a pickiness with the bass right now. So a slow falling presentation is the key to catching them. And that goes for the minnows or the jigs. So the lighter the weight you can get away with, the better off you are right now. So just play the wind on that deal. I've got another photo here for you of some nice crappie we caught with Flatsmere family this week. Real nice folks. And as you can see, we're still catching them, catching some good fish. Just have to give it to them like they want it. They're a little picky. And up on Richland Chambers, Mr. Selman also says that they're catching crappie as well. And they're doing about 25 to 30 foot of water up there. And they're catching them all over the lake. They've just been having to pick their area based on the wind, wherever they can fish, because the wind's been beating them up there trying to crappie fish. And lastly, the catfish have been biting also real good on Toledo Bend. They actually slowed down a bit for a week or two there, which is a rare occurrence. They usually bite just about all the time. But they're wide open again now, and you're going to want to look for them in about 15 to 30 foot of water, and they're going to be down near the bottom underneath the shad.
All right, thank you so much, Matt. Great report from the Startron Middle Fresh region. It's time to take a look at the hot spots. He says that the bass are biting bottom baits and top waters in the low light hours, and then the crappie are hanging in 15 to 30 feet, and the catfish are sitting on the bottom below those crappies.
Perfect. All right, in the Upper Fresh region, you're going to be so happy catching up those crappie on Lake Levant. So let's get Johnny Geis on the line to tell us more. Hi, Johnny.
Hey, Brig, how y'all tonight?
Good.
Hey, the crappie are on Lake Levant, man, they're biting. Got a guy buddy named Kerry Thorne over there. He's been on the road on limits of crappie lately. In fact, he's produced 2-man limits of crappie on all but 2 trips this year. That's a pretty good record there. Lately, he's had more clients catching their 25-man crappie limit before 9 a.m., so it's been an early bite over there. And then he goes on out and lets them catch a limit of white bass as well. So good catching over at Lake Levant. Kerry says there's so much bait in Levant right now, it's just silly. And here's an interesting fact. He's catching them on just about any different colored jig that he puts on. He said he's yet to find a color that absolutely smashes them better than others. And he's used every color he can imagine. Anytime a client breaks off, he asks them, well, what color you want to try next? So they put it on, they still catch fish. So I kind of agree with Kerry, and I felt the same way that using specific color is more of a confidence thing, as long as it's shad color, brim colored, or whatever. And it really doesn't matter about color. The only time color makes a difference is if your buddy's catching them and you're not, he's got a different color bait on. Then it's the most important thing in the world. But other than that, it's not that big a deal. Guy Kerry Thorne just shared a secret for catching those short striking crappie. So listen closely, viewers. He's using a tiny number 18 eagle claw treble hook. Now that is a small one. It's right behind his crappie jigs. He's tying it on to the bend of the hook. Just sticks out right behind the jig. These tiny treble hook, this hook dangles right behind the plastic, and it catches those short striking crappie. You have to net them. You can't boat flip those. Lake Levant is loaded up in quality crappie right now, and there's plenty of brush piles and crappie holding structure all over that lake. Kerry likes to put out his willow trees for the new brush piles, brushes them up this time of the year, and says that the new brush on the piles will be holding crappie within a few hours. Most of the crappie he's catching right now is from 12 to 15 foot level on the Levant, and he's using his Garmin live scope to quickly locate and catch crappie every day. I'm zooming my Garmin out right now to about 75 foot or more as I scout for new areas here on Fork, and once I find them, I zoom it back in, get the boat within about 10 to 15 foot, dropping that jig or minnow down to just above the school of crappie, and then a slow rise in your jig or minnow. You can't let it fall back, and you can't jiggle it. Just raise it up, let the crappie chase it up, and they'll run it down and get caught. If you stop that lift or drop your bait, the crappie will turn away, go back in the brush pile. It's been a lot of fun this week catching some big crappie on brush piles, but we missed so many short strikers. But now with Kerry's treble hook tip, I tied it on today. We got 31 in the boat pretty quick, and we caught a lot of those short striking crappie. So give old Kerry a call if you want to go catch some big crappie on Lake Levant. He shared this picture of a happy crappie customer this week, and that's 2 pretty good slabs right there, Capt. Rick.
Yes, sir. Looking like they should be on the table.
Feeding some big fish here on Fork, big bass. I always like to report on the other great guides on Lake Fork, and this week I'm covering a guide buddy named James Caldemeyer. James is a well-known and respected guy here on the lake. Man, this guy, he works extremely hard to see him out there early and late every day. He has the very best Garmin units on his boat, 4 of them, matter of fact, and he knows how to use them. James covers all areas of the lake each day and sometimes several times a day. Watching his electronics, he does a lot of graphing and looking until he finds those concentration of big bass on deep structure. James usually likes catching on big swim baits here on Fort, but recently he's been using a magnum-sized flutter spoon. It's 8 to 9 inches long, and it is catching them right now, some big ones. The flutter spoon bite can be good to excellent on Fort this time of year, and it shines when these old big bass are chasing the large gizzard shad. Some days, especially when it's a little bit calm, we'll see several large gizzard shad jump out of the water just out of nowhere. They're just popping out of the water. You may not see a bass strike or even a swirl in the water, but when you see that, for sure there's a big school of bass feeding in that area. So this is when the flutter spoon shines. It's best to put that bait on about a 20-pound fluorocarbon line on a long rod with a soft tip. To fish that spoon, you make a long cast, let that heavy spoon fall to the bottom, and when the lure hits the bottom, the line will go slack. Lift your rod up to 10 or 12 o'clock position. Watch that bow in your line as that spoon flutters back down. You don't have to hop it far, just lift it off the bottom, let it go back down. Strikes occur on the fall, and you usually see your line jump or feel that tick as that fish hits. Quick hook set, and you got him on. Continue retrieve by sweeping the spoon up off the bottom, keep letting it fall all the way back on slack line. I'm even catching some right in the brush piles, keeping it above the brush. I can see the brush of my Garmin, and the spoons are working there too. This time of year, big bass school up on Fort, deep structure, and when you catch one, there's usually more in that same area. Not unusual here on Fort to get fire up a school and catch 10, 15 bass from 5 to 7 pounds on one area without even moving the boat, so it's a good time. Here's a picture James shared of a recent customer with a couple of pictures here with big bass caught on the spoons. Take a look at the size of these fish, and more importantly, look how long that spoon is.
Yeah.
Some big old bass, and when you can spoon feed 5 to 7 pound fish like that all day long, it's a good time to be on the water.
All right, Johnny.
Hey, August can be brutally hot here in North Texas, and so can the fishing. So be sure you've got that sunscreen on. You're drinking plenty of water. Start it early and keep drinking. So it's a good time to be out there. Hope these 2 hot tips will help you catch more fish and get out on the lake this weekend. Put a big one in the boat.
All right, Johnny, thank you so much. We're going to take a look at the hot spots from the Upper Fresh region. Johnny says Lake Levon, the crappie are excellent on minnows and jigs, fishing in 15 to 25 feet of water over the brush piles, submerged timber, and bridges. And then the white bass are excellent in 20 to 30 feet with jigs, spoons, and slabs, and look for the birds diving and feeding over the schools of white bass. And then Lake Fort, the water temperature 86 to 89. The big bass are coming from 18 to 25 foot on football jigs, big shaky head worms, and big rig plastics, Texas rig plastics. The main lake points and humps are the best structure for those big flutter spoons. Man.
Big spoons.
Big spoons.
Big spoons.
Those are like salad spoons.
They
Big
are.
spoons. Yeah.
Bass salad.
Bass
All right,
salad.
the Hobby Reels Middle Coast region is ready to get jiggy with us next, but coming up first, we're getting jiggy with Dave Farrell at the workbench. Dave, you getting jiggy over there or what?
Well, you could jig with these things, but we're going to be building a wind-on leader system in less than 5 minutes, hopefully.
I meant dance moves.
We're going to see it.
Show me your jiggy dance moves.
I can't. I'm not jigging.
Come on.
If I start moving, I don't stop jiggling for 5 minutes.
I won't be mad.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Casa Vieja Lodge. 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala. Garmin. Join the club. Sportsman's Adventures. Fishing for adventure. And Skeeter Performance Fishing Boats. Eat, sleep, fish.
Reliability. Yamaha is known for it. And it's something boaters value, because these days, few things are built to last. When we find something that is, we hold on to friendships, traditions, outboards. Because every second on the water is sacred. If you count on having this time, you need an outboard you can count on to power it. That's why boaters choose Yamaha for the long run, for life. Because reliability starts here.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore.
Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
For the Bay and beyond, team up with the best and rule the Bay in a Skeeter. Built for big water or running the flats, Skeeter has a Bay boat designed for you. Proven with 19 consecutive NMMA Consumer Satisfaction Awards. Versatility, control, performance, and design. Visit your local dealer or online at SkeeterBoats.com. Skeeter, it's more than a boat, it's a lifestyle.
Have you ever felt your heart pounding while feeling the power of a tarpon in the Florida Keys? Or experienced the changing colors of a mahi as you bring it on board? Whether it's in the Bahamas, the Florida Keys, Guatemala, or the Florida Everglades, Murphy's Law Sports Fishing has the ability to guide you to the fish of a lifetime. To book your trip today, call 305-246-0673 or go to murphyslawsportfishing.com. It's time for the rigs and techniques, and
Yes,
Dave's
sir.
are my man. So, Dave.
Yep, I'm breaking stuff already. Well, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building a wind-on leader system. And why you want a wind-on leader is, you know, if you come to a swivel and you still got 30 feet of leader out there, then you have to have somebody on the boat who knows how to leader a fish close and then can gaff the fish and all that stuff with a leader in his hand. If you have a wind-on leader, you can just wind the fit all the way up to the boat, dang near, 4 or 5 feet away, and you can reach out with a gaff or let him go or do all that stuff, and you don't have to have a wireman or an extra dude, because one guy can do it. He can just work his way down the wind-on leader as the angler keeps winding it into the reel, and we catch the fish. Now, this is a 30-pound.
Yeah, so go ahead.
All right,
we're going to make it.
We have a 30-pound test line, which is, I'm going to use a spider hitch to tie the double line. When you're using 30-pound test and under, that's perfectly okay. If you're using 50-pound test and over, then you might want to go with a bimini twist here. But for right now, I'm going to tie.
You got enough there?
Give me a little line here so I can get in the middle better. I'm going to tie what we call a spider hitch. And what you do is you make yourself a loop about how big of a loop of line that you want.
Right.
You make a little pinch at the end of the loop, at the top of the loop, and you put them in your two fingers just like that so it's not crossing. You take the big loop part and you'll wrap it around your fingers 5 or 6 times. Mm-hmm. And then you put it back through the hole. And you want to wet this really good because you don't want to burn the line. Wet it real good with some spit. And then you want to pull it off slow and let those coils come off your fingers like they should.
Right.
And then tighten it up like that. Tighten all 4 lines. And that's 100% knot. There's people that'll tell you it's not. I've put it on a scale. It won't break.
It won't?
Nope, it's 100%. It will break at 30 pounds.
Okay. Yeah. If it's 30-pound line?
If it's 30-pound line.
Okay.
Now
what?
We've got the double line that we're going to use to attach the leader part.
Okay.
And what we have here is a 100-pound test, high catch, nylon, and you can use 80-pound. I've caught tons of little blue marlins and sailfish on 80, 100-pound test leader. To catch all the dolphins and wahoos and whatever you want. So wind it up a little bit. We're going to go out front.
We're going to slide out here.
Yeah, wind it up a little bit so I can get some tension. All right, and you take your 20 feet of 100-pound, and you're going to open up your loop a little bit. And what you do is you just lay the leader alongside of it and just wrap it around 4 times. You can do more, and you can do 3, but never do 2. And then once you've wrapped it around the 2 main legs, you put it back through the hole.
Show it to the camera to your right there, Dave, so everybody can see. Your hand was actually blocking there. Perfect. Right. Now we can see.
Back through the hole.
That right
Got
hand.
the hole going through the hole.
All right. The right hand. Perfect.
All right. Now we're going to
always wet your
lube
knots,
it up.
guys, because when you pull it down tight like this, it heats it up. And if it doesn't.
Let's see how, look at that little knot right there.
All right. Trim it off.
That's a 100-pound knot.
Here.
A 100-pound to 30-pound double line. And that'll go right into the guides. And it won't break. I've caught a lot of big fish on that.
See how it goes through. This is what's more important.
It comes out.
Dave, pull it out. And then look how it goes back through, guys. This is what, there's
the wind
no
on.
hanging.
And it go all the way up. And then that's the fish getting closer and closer and closer. And now you'll have a swivel.
Right, a diamond.
A diamond swivel. A ball bearing swivel. Make
Show
sure
the camera to your right, Dave.
It's a ball bearing swivel. And we're just going to do a uni knot. We're just going to do a uni knot in it. And we're going to do a 3-turn uni in 100 pound. That's really all you need. If you do more, it gets too big of a knot.
Okay, pull it down tight.
Let it down.
Pull it, trim it.
And now you can make your leader system for your ballyhoos or for your little lures or whatever, and they only have a little 5-foot section with a little loop at one end. Even your circle hooks for a ballyhoo rig, you can have all your leaders tied up, and they're only 5 feet long. Before, if you wanted to have your leader attached to the lure that you're going to use, you had to have a 30-foot section of coiled leader that you have to store.
Right.
Now you don't have to store any of that stuff on big long lines. You have little short leaders that goes right through, and this will go right through your guides.
Good.
Bing, bing, bing.
Good for you, Dave. I like that.
I use this is what is on all my rods and reels at home, because I'm not using usually anything over 30. I have one rod that has 50 on it, which is my Wahoo rod, and the rest of them are built just like this.
All right.
I can do it pretty quick.
Dave, you learning us today. I learned so much just from that.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you, Dave.
That was good.
All right, well, let's hear from Captain Bink Grimes on how the storm has impacted the fishing in the Alvey Reels Middle Coast region. Give us some good news, Bink.
It is good news. I mean, storm came through. Our tides rose for about 3 or 4 foot. But, man, tropical moisture and tropical tides always are boon for fishing. And what it's done, it's really put a lot of new water in some real estate that didn't have water in July because of the lower than normal tides. So we've really been reaping the benefits of it. We like it when those storms are brewing out there. The barometer's falling, the easterly flow, wind prevails, and it's all recipes for a good speckled trout bite. Mid-coast anglers been boxing full box of trout. Last week, the surf, of course, we didn't do it. When that storm got closer, we got out of the surf and went back to the bay. Multiple 7 to 8 pound trout have been released while drifting in East Matagorda Bay. We're finding a pile of shell, 5 foot of water, soaking a shrimp or soaking a little john around Raymond Shoals, Pipeline Log, and the tripod area. Waders have done the same thing on top waters like sheep hups and on bass assassins, chicken on a chain, morning glory bass assassin, sea shad, around Half Moon Reef, 3 Beacon Reef, and Drill's Lump. The keys have been, it's been an early bite, a real early bite. We're getting out there before sunrise, and we've usually been having our fish by 8 o'clock. West Matagorda Bay's been steady. Those grass beds are holding good trout on the incoming tide on bass assassins, in mirror softines and sheep pups. The tide's still up, probably about 1.5 feet, 2 foot above normal. It's pushed a lot of those fish tight to the shoreline. A lot of good topwater action real early in the morning. Port O'Connor's been hot as well. Those deep reefs in San Antonio Bay, much like our East Matagorda Bay, are holding trout along the edges. There's hundreds of reef in that bay. I mean, just tons and tons. You can reef hop from here to here, here to there, and just loads of reefs. And a lot of those fish are, with the higher tides, they're right on top of the reef. And then as the tides start to fall, they'll be dropped right off the edge. Guide Lynn Smith said he's been waiting for limits on the incoming tide around Pascaval. A lot of fish caught on top waters there around City Slickers, the Cedars, and then the old Coast Guard station. Then in Rockport, kind of been teasing trout on Mirror Double Ds and Bass Assassins rigged on Texas custom jig heads. Guts and the edges of sand and grass flats are holding those trout with the big tides, super flats, and Allen's Bite. Those flats that are normally about shin deep, they're about waist deep now, and man, those trout are pulling up tight on there, and they have a hard time turning down a sheep up. We'll go to redfish. Man, if any action has improved with these storm tides, it's been the redfish. Normally, we just don't catch a whole lot of redfish in July because the tides are so low. But man, when they're high like they are right now, I'm talking the last 2 or 3 days have been really, really good. Lots of slot size. They're in the back of the back of those back lakes in Port O'Connor, Freeport, Matagorda. Pattern has been, so right up against the grass. Those shrimp are trying to hide in the grass. All that water's pushed up in the grass, so those shrimp are pushed up with there, and those reds are just rooting them out. Guide Brett Sweeney said he's found good redfish over flat on the grassy shorelines and swollen backwaters in West Matagorda Bay. There's a lot of slot-sized reds at the Matagorda Jetty as well. This time of year, man, there's a lot of big menhaden showing up, and those redfish are dining on those menhaden, and also tarpon are showing up too, right behind all those menhaden. There's a photo there. Last week I had a day off. Weather was too good to stay home, so I took my wife out there. She popped that real nice redfish.
Nice.
So we'll go offshore. I tell you, our Gulf shrimp season has been good. It opened July 15th, and a lot of offshore anglers are getting behind those shrimp boats while they're culling. A lot of Dorado and kingfish behind them. There's a lot of weed lines out there. Of course, with the storm surge, it's pushed a lot of those weeds a lot closer in. So, man, a lot of those Dorado are a lot tighter right underneath the weed lines, as well as triple tail. Mac could go back and said those weed lines are trolling ballyhoo deep diving crankbaits along them. Little chicken dolphin, and then the triple tail right off the beach. Like he said, he said, about 3 to 4 miles off the beach. Then the red snapper, not much, with the storm last week, not a whole lot of people have gotten out, but it's getting calm again. And those red snapper in a 20-pound range, there's so many of them out there, and those captains are just taking advantage of them. And once again, rafts of menhaden, they show up at the end of July, close to our beach, and into August, and those tarpon are right behind them. They're rolling and daisy chaining out there, and a lot of people just don't realize how good our tarpon fishing can be in Texas. But in August, September, it's really good if you know what to look for.
All right, thank you so much, Bink. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Middle Coast hotspots from Bink's region. He says the trout are good on the edges of the reefs in San Antonio Bay on bass assassins and she pups, and then offshore. The Dorados and triple tail are good offshore along the weed lines on large shrimp and a squid.
All right, Rick, we're staying in the news on the Fish Bites Upper Coast and Garmin Lower Coast regions coming right up on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. But remember, if you want to stay up to date on all things fishing in Texas, make sure you head over to our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube page, Captain Rick Murphy, where we upload new videos every week. We'll be right back with your captains.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. Alvy Reels, a better way to fish. And Murphy's Law Sport Fishing. Book your trip today at murphyslawsportfishing.com.
An entirely new species of extreme predator is moving offshore. The Yamaha 5.6-liter V8 XTO offshore outboard. Extreme big block thrust and power in the industry's first direct injection 4-stroke. Quiet, efficient, powerful, and proven Yamaha reliability. More than an outboard, it's a fully integrated power system. The all-new Yamaha V8 XTO offshore.
Why is Casa Vieja Lodge on everyone's bucket list?
Left teaser, left flat as well, 2 fish. They're everywhere. Right flat teaser as well. Left flat, right flat teaser.
Come to Casa Vieja Lodge and check it off your list.
Finding a shoreline is easy. Finding a sure thing is not. For over 20 years, anglers from Kitty Hawk to California and every shore in between have come to know one thing: that nothing says no to fish bites. So just stop with the fishing and get busy with the catching. Ask for Fish Bites or Fish Bites Fight Club lures or visit fishbites.com.
Power Pole tip is about the Sea Monster Network. As most of you know, Power Pole has always been a technology-driven company and will continue to innovate new products and technologies now and into the future. It was about 6 or 7 years ago that we looked at all the different technologies that were available on the market, but they all had limitations like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So we designed and built the Sea Monster Network from the ground up, specifically designed it for the marine industry so that anglers could wirelessly control everything on their boat from bow to stern. Now, it may not be as obvious as the Power Pole anchors on the back of everyone's boat, but it will soon be just as widespread. So, next time you're in the store and you're picking out your favorite marine accessory, look for the Sea Monster logo on those products. And that is your Power Pole tip.
You know, Brie, with the charge, I have not charged my boat, have not physically plugged it in since January.
No way.
Because I make these 20 and 30-minute runs back to the boat ramp after I get done running my trolling motor. It's unbelievable. It's a game changer for sure.
Game changer. You go Power Pole.
Yes.
All right, if you want to get out there this weekend in the Fish Bites Upper Coast region, listen up to Captain Carl Weston, who has some suggestions for you. Talk to us, Carl.
Well, folks, you know, your best bet this past few days has been hiding from the rain and wind, thanks to old Hannah. But the bite in the Upper Coast is still steady this week, even with all the weather challenges we've had. And our tried and true tactics have remained close to the same. Live shrimp on a popping cork, a 4-inch Bass Assassin shrimp on an 1/8-ounce jig head has been producing nice fish. We've added a little bit of weight this week due to the heavy winds, so you can still get out there and get your cast, get where you want them to be. And as far as the stained water goes, try to use a light-colored lure such as white or a bright green. Now, there's been a lot of fresh water dumped into our bays and rivers in the past week, so I would definitely recommend fishing a little deeper out in the channels, the water out near the jetties. The salinity is going to be higher in this area, and the fish will congregate there to chase bait, and you'll have a whole lot of better chance at hooking up there. We have a picture today of Carson with a nice trout.
Aww,
nice. All right, what else you got for us, Carl? Come on, keep going, man. I know you're ready to go to bed. Jeez.
Moving forward on to Trinity Bay, the water temp over here is like 84 degrees, and the reds have been smashing bait fish all along the shorelines and the reefs. The east and west Galveston Bay complex have redfish schooling out in the middle of the bay and along the channel edges. Pushing up to Sabine Lake, the redfish have been hot all along the jetties, using a live shrimp on a popping cork. The same 4-inch Bass Assassin shrimp on an 1/8-ounce jig head is working well. The bull red fishing has been consistent along the beachfront. And all along our fan favorites have been Fish Bites, shrimp flavor on a large bucktail. So, and when you're looking for these bait in these large schools of shad along the jetties headed offshore, always keep your eyes open for birds and pelicans diving on these schools. These shad and mullet have made great live bait and dead bait for the bulls also. I like to use a simple seeker rig with about a 6-ounce egg sinker tied to a 60-pound diamond moy leader and about a 5/0 Trocard J hook. And the guys can't resist these laser sharp hooks tipped with shad. We have a picture of Caleb today with a stout little bull red. And so we're moving offshore to snapper. Snapper season's almost over, guys, as far as federal waters. We've pulled in some really big fish this year. And we've been sharing pictures, as we've been going along. And pushing towards the end of the season, we're still happy to report the schools still seem to be just as active and abundant as at the start of the season. The snapper haven't seemed to slow down at all. We're hitting our limits on every trip pretty quick. The methods are variety. It comes, with guys we have used live, dead, artificial bait, and they hit on all of them. Once again, I'll go back to, we've been using large bucktails, tipped with shrimp-flavored fish bites. It's been working good. It's been a fun thing to try this year, and it's produced some great results and some really big fish. And we have a picture here of one of those bad weather big snapper.
Nice. Boy, that's a big snapper, Carl. Ugh. All right, tell us about the amberjacks, Jack.
Amberjack? Hey, leaving snapper season and entered into the old AJ season. We've been waiting for this season for a while. We've had to throw these fish back for the last couple months. And so now we're going to get to be able to keep a few and throw them on the grill. And most of you probably figured out in the last 2 months, snapper fishing, that there are a bunch of amberjack on the same bottom structure. If you looked at your Garmin and asked, what is that big blob suspended about halfway down? Chances are you're marking some big old amberjack. So let's talk about rigging for these big fish. You're going to want to go heavy. When you think your rig is too heavy, go heavier. I personally would like to use no less than 250-pound leader. Once again, Diamond Moy is my choice. They make a great wind-on leader up to 500-pound test, even if you want to go that big. And when you're fishing rigged, a lot of times with the abrasion resistance, you're going to want that rubbing against the legs. So, and all my amberjack rods, I weight them differently depending on the depth of the water. But as far as in the last few months, there have been fish everywhere. So if you go out in any of the deeper water situations, you're gonna find fish deep. So just check your terminal tackle, make sure everything is big and strong. Like you say, bigger bait, bigger fish, and a hungry amberjack cannot resist Texas hardtail in these parts. I have a picture today of Chad with one of those big amberjacks that couldn't resist a hardtail.
Whoa.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Great
The big
pictures
one.
this week. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the mirror lure hotspots from the Upper Coast region. He says inshore trout casting topwater mirror lure twitch baits and bass assassin sea shads over the oyster reefs. Then amberjacks dropping large live baits on offshore structure for those amberjacks. What do you think?
Well, I think that was a pretty big fish that you just showed. Oh, man.
Yeah, man.
Oh, that looked good. All right, we're headed into the Garmin Lower Coast region where the aftermath of Hannah is still being felt. And while our captain, Chad Kinney, and family is safe, he's unable to call in today. But we do have his report. We will read, and Rick, it's looking pretty good, don't you think?
Yeah, man. You know, Brie, the cool part, I talked to Chad, they just don't have the power and they don't have phone service.
Right.
And, so they're just going through what you do. But anyway, so what he's basically said to start off with is his first species after the high tides, the flushing of the bays, look for the trout out of Port Mansfield on the east cut and the north land cut. Expect the tides to be moving faster than normal, so you try to get to the lower current areas and the deeper guts falling off of the flats. Use heavier eagle claw jig heads, 1/4 to 1/2 ounce, with a saltwater sea shad assassin. And then if you want to use live baits, use the live croakers free lined with a 5 to 7/0 Kale hook. Now the way they're hooking those croakers, Brie, is they're sliding that hook up underneath the roof of the fish's mouth and pop it out between his eyes, and that basically works really well. It allows that croaker to still open his mouth and so that he can breathe. And so that's a key to fishing any live bait, whether it's pinfish, croakers, or what have you. His second species is going to be redfish, Brie. He says the redfish have been moving up and down the flats following the bait, just like Bink was talking about. With the higher tides, they expect the fall for heavier, and look for those redfish to be congregated in big schools, but they'll get real shallow because they're allowed there. What they're doing is they're getting to places because of the high water that they normally couldn't get to. So they're finding crabs and shrimp and a variety of other things in the grass. So it's kind of like, hey man, we're eating at a different picnic table because we're allowed to get there now. The flow of tide is allowing them to push up shallow. He's throwing paddle tails with saltwater assassins, using them, and then the baits, he's using a Carolina rig with a mullet or even a menhaden. Now, offshore, what Chad basically told me when I was listening to what little bit we could talk on the phone, he said that the offshore conditions are going to rapidly improve. And obviously the storms have a tendency to make and cause lots of debris. So with that being said, you want to go out and look for that debris, look for any rips, and when you go and find those rips, then you'll be able to find triple tails, the mahis will be around, and then He's also saying on your way out or on your way back, you can do some red snapper fishing. Is excellent, but it looks like the higher currents is going to keep the fish really close to the structure. Use your Garmin sounder and your GPS to see where the fish are at. Usually these conditions, they will hold a lot tighter to the bottom because of all the current flow. Use heavier weight, 16 to 20 ounces. Use a little bit of bait on the bottom in the mud, since there's a silky layer, will be a little heavier right now because of the turbidity from the storm. Use fresh bait such as squid, menhaden, and look for them with, you can even tip some of your jigs with some fish bites. You can also use a 9 to 11-0 circle hook. Now, offshore, if you get to go, the pelagics will be tough due to the high currents on the surface, but look for debris and also possible rips that can be produced, big dorados and wahoos, etc. Look for color changes, use islanders, rigged and flat lines, look with bait, and look for the color changes using, again, the Garmin temperature changes, and he suggests to use your SiriusXM fish mapping to kind of figure out where the weed lines are, because the fish mapping reflects off of the satellites in there. You'll be able to see the weed piles.
Right. So Rick, with hurricanes, you know, lots of negative things come from hurricanes, but what can we look forward to from a fishing aspect?
So the way I see it, Brie, is, you know, when you get a hurricane that comes in because of the volatile winds and the wave actions, it's like giving you a face scrubbing. You know, when you do your face mask that you girls do, whatever. But it scrubs the bottom. So once that dirty water, it goes away, and then, you know, another few days, a few tide change, guess what? Healthier grass, and then lots of bait will return to take advantage of that. Well, but you know what? We got to take a look at the shallow sport boat hotspots from the lower coast region. He says inshore, head to Baffin Bay for trout off the rocks and breaks off of the grass beds, and then offshore, look for the debris floating for the ling. State water snapper is still going to be really good too, Brie.
All right, well, you just take a big breather there, take a big break, and we're seeing what big bites we're getting in the lower fresh region when we return. But first, we're checking in with the big guns over at the workbench for new products.
Really? Big
Dave,
guns?
show us your big guns, Dave. Those are the big guns right there.
Made me laugh too much. I can't even speak. Look how these things look so real. I want to eat them. I'm starving.
Oh, those look yummy. We'll be back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Ameritrail. Load, launch, relax. Turn on the bite anytime. Tie on a MirrOlure. Diamond Fishing Products. Our reputation is on the line. And Startron. Cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems.
At the pinnacle of super high output, 4-stroke outboard performance, you'll find Yamaha VMAX SHO. Yamaha's game-changing SHO technology. From exhilarating V6 models to the sleek inline 4s, there's a VMAX SHO for everything from bass to bonefish. It's an extended family of 4-strokes engineered for lightweight, inspiring performance, and rock-solid reliability. Discover VMAX SHO and elevate your expectations.
The only reel with over 100 years of heritage. Alvi reels are manufactured using the most reliable components. Alvy's state-of-the-art drag and retrieve rates are perfect for any fishing challenge. So whether it's a side cast or spinning reel, Alvy makes a reel that best fits your needs. Alvy reels are manufactured to best practice standards and are in fact so robust that the Alvy also comes with up to a 10-year salt and sand warranty. For more information, go to alvyus.com.
All right, you know what?
4 minutes.
That's right.
Grand Slam 950 right there. It's electric masthead anchor light. You know, you can use that thing on your, you don't have to get up on the gunnel.
Or the T-top.
Nope. You can raise that thing, it starts getting dark, just raise your light up, bam. Good to go.
I like it.
Complete electric motor in there. Delrin bearings, moves very slowly, really smooth. You don't have to worry about it rusting. You know, you can see it for 3 nautical miles. It's good, Coast Guard approved for 3 nautical miles. Low
nice
draw,
toy.
6 amps per light, 10 feet, 10 feet of lead. You're gonna go up and down as many times as you can, aren't you?
I like
the wires hide inside the T-top, and it'll fit on any size T-top, and it comes with a backing plate as well. 1-year warranty.
Nice.
Yeah, so.
Who makes this?
Taco
Grand
Marine.
Slam,
Taco Marine.
Okay, tacomarine.com is where you find it.
Taco Marine.
All right.
Next, we have the Eagle Claw TK3 XL, and these are really nice Lancet circle hooks. They've got a really sharp point on them. They penetrate very easily, a lot easier than most of their competitors. It's the first time it's available now in the 50 pack. It's cold forged American steel, made in Denver, Colorado. It's got a wide gap and a medium wire, so it's a pretty hefty hook, but it still goes in fast and deep. It's got a welded eye. A welded ring eye, so you don't have to worry about getting stuff caught in there. And a black chrome finish, and it comes in sizes from all the way from 1/0 all the way up to a 9/0 there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Trocar.com, actually. Go get your Trocars.
Okay. Now, what do we got here, Dave?
Well, we got the Live Target Slow Roll Shiner, and these things I love them. They look amazing, and I've been using them quite a bit. You can see there's a couple of them missing there. As soon as I got them the other day, I said I got to try these things. But they're injected molded. They've got a little insert inside that they inject inside, and they come in 3-inch, 4-inch, and it takes realism to a whole new level. I mean, they look very lifelike. They have 3 little holes inside. They got one in the head, one about midway down the body, and one closer to the back, so that you can actually guide your hooks through there. You get your hook where it's supposed to be. I put it on a little Ned jig. I put that 3-inch on a little Ned head jig. Oh my gosh, the thing looks incredibly real. You got that little metallic shine, and it just rolls. No matter how fast you go, I mean, it just does a nice slow roll and flashes that metallic belly. And they're really good. I love them. Live Target, LiveTargetLures.com. You get the Slow Roll Shiner. And last but not least, we have a couple of Z-Man's chatterbaits. These are two new different ones. That one there is called the Stealth Blade. It's the Jackhammer Stealth Blade, and it's called the Stealth because you can see that one blade over there is clear. Right. It's got a high polycarbonate blade and a stainless steel ring on there. The other one, well, you're going back and forth on me, pal. That's the cross eyes chatterbait. This one's got the snag resistant.
The weed guard.
The weed guard on it, and it's an adjustable weed guard. It's coated multi-strand wire. It's got a 5/0 O'Shaughnessy hook, and both of them have hand-tied skirts and really good keepers on them. So if you wanted to put a trailer, if you wanted to put one like we showed you the other day, you put a nice Bass Assassin trailer on there.
Like this.
Yeah, and they just make a lot of noise. Chatterbaits are really good search bait because you can go fast if you want to, or reel them slower. And
so I got a question for you quickly.
Sure.
What size heads? How small do they make the heads?
They make them from 3/8 up to 3/4 ounce.
Oh, okay.
So they
do
make
them
big
light
ones too. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good job, Mr. Dave.
No worries.
It's time for us to go to another region, though.
Yes, it is. All right, the lower fresh region is staying fresh and catching up the biggins like usual on LBJ, Buchanan, Bastrop, Fayette County, and Somerville. So let's get a little guidance from Matt Reed. Hey, Matt.
All right, let's get this thing rolling. I'll start off in the Austin area. Brian Connors sent me a report for several lakes there. We start out at LBJ. Fishing's good right now in LBJ. You can catch some nice fish early on the top waters and wake baits around the rocks, bulkheads, and retaining walls. Later in the day, skip as many docks as you can with
with several baits have been working: a jig, a fluke, a wacky rig worm, or a shaky head. But the key is just to get it as far back under in the shade as you can. That's where the big ones are hiding. Also, a good bite going on at night there right now. You can dodge the heat. You want to fish all the dock lights. A lot of the docks have lights on them. Some of the lights are full of largemouth. Some of them have some white bass mixed in, so it can be a smorgasbord. Throw a small 3 or 4 inch swim bait or a medium-sized crankbait to catch those fish. A jig or a big worm on the outside edge of the light, right on the edge of the dark, can sometimes produce a really big one. Moving on to Lake Buchanan, it's still kicking out some nice fish. Start the day throwing a popping top water to get some great bites. Later in the day, it gets a little tough, but you need to move out a little bit, and that's a good chance to catch your best one out in that 10 to 15 foot range. Lake Bastrop, kicking out a lot of bass, and while he's fishing for the bass, he's catching some crappie also mixed in on those offshore humps with a small jigging spoon. That's the best way he's been able to get them to bite. Some of the bass are starting to school. You can throw a clear top water at them, but when they school, you got to be right on top of them. It can be fun, but it can also drive you crazy trying to chase them around. Greg Boyd with Angler's Angle Guide Service out of College Station sent me a report from Fayette County. It's been real good this week. The offshore bites in that 12 to 20 foot range on the main lake points and road beds. He's catching them on a Carolina rig creature bait and a green pumpkin stick bait. Also catching some on a drop shot. One thing that's happened this week, he just killed them one day on a 1 ounce willow spinner bait out in that 15 to 20 foot range. When they stopped biting the Carolina rig, picked up the spinner bait and fired them back up. So don't neglect that out in that deep water. Summerville has been fair. There's been some early action on a small walking bait or a popper around the rocks early in the morning. Later on, it's been best on the south end around the island on deep brush piles. You need to throw a drop shot or a shaky head black trick worm and fish it extremely slow in those brush piles when the sun gets high, but that's the way they've been producing best. That picture there, that's Greg Boyd himself with one of those spinnerbait fish from Fayette County this week.
Nice.
Always fun to see a big old fish.
Yeah, it is. All right, tell us about the white bass, bud.
White bass and hybrids. Lake Somerville, they've been biting really well. They mix together the whites and the hybrids. They've been biting real well shallow on top waters and slabs. Later in the day, they're schooling all over the main lake. Small lipless crankbaits or jigging spoons reeled real fast through the surface action. Has been putting limits of whites and hybrids. You never know if it's going to be a regular little old white or a great big hybrid. And that's Greg with a big old hybrid in that picture. See, caught out of the schooling whites.
Whoa!
Wow, that's a nice
Holy
one.
cow.
All right, tell us about the catfish, Big Mac.
Down at Falcon, we got some catfish going on. Water level's real low, and that's starting to move the cats out of the creeks down on the main lake. Catching them on shad, stink bait, and shrimp. Also cut baits working. The bigger catfish are being caught late at night on the flats right off the creek, off the main river channel. Big gizzard shad, tilapia, and baby carp are working best for that. Hope we get a little water this week from that hurricane. Yeah, we got us about 1 foot. That's all we got. So we're still about 39.5 feet low.
All right, I got a couple questions for you. The first question is, what's the biggest bass that you've ever guided to, Matt?
That I've ever guided to? Let's see. I've had customers catch several fish just under 13 pounds. But we've never caught one over 13 on a guide trip. That's a mistaken. I had one that actually my scales would not weigh, that I think may have weighed 15, that buddy caught out of the back of my boat down there. My scales go to 15, and they've never not weighed a fish, and they would not weigh that fish.
Wow. That was a big one.
All right, quickly.
Wasn't gonna risk killing it, so we took a picture and turned her loose.
Same thing happened to me once.
All right, bud. Well, thank you for that. I'll have more questions for you. Looking forward to it. It's time to take a look at the hot spots from the Lower Fresh region. My man Matt says LBJ is kicking out some great action. Throw top waters early around the rocks and the retaining walls, and then later in the day skip jigs under docks for big bites. You can avoid the heat and fish at night around the dock lights. At the last bash, catching a mixed bag of largemouth and white bass and small spinnerbaits. I lost my focus.
That is a blast.
That was a lot of reading for a man.
That's what it is.
Too much.
You're all good, Rick.
My little brain is, whoa.
I know.
Your hat's too tight.
It's because you eat too many fish bites. Those aren't meant for humans.
I'm trying to get more fish focused.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it is?
I thought
You're
maybe fish bites
focused.
would take me there.
Okay, well, if you want to catch a Rick Murphy, get you a fish bites. He likes the shrimp, right? What color?
It all tastes like
Pearl?
mashed potatoes.
I like
All
the
like mashed
hammer
potatoes.
fist.
The hammer fist.
That's what it's called.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for joining
Hammer
us, guys.
fist.
Make sure you
Watch
go out
my
there
little
and
thing
catch
go
them
up and
up.
down.
Stay safe.
There we go.